Hi guys, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck and today I've got a bit of a different video for you. I came across a very interesting connected collaboration series from some YouTube teachers and it's called, I want to make sure I've got the wording right because this is my first time doing it, Teaching Around the World, Teaching Tag. So I saw this on a fellow Australian teacher's YouTube channel, Life in Football Land, and believe it or not, the title is one of the things that grabbed me. She is a secondary teacher teaching English, and she had tagged on from an American teacher called The Emerging Educator. And from there now, it's going around the world with lots of other tags. So another teacher that I saw get onto it is Nick. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Nick. He's French and his channel is called A Happy Teacher. And trust me, he's a very happy teacher. And I've also seen Señor S jump onto it, teaching Spanish teacher, and there's other ones on there as well, and I'm going to link all of their channels below in case you want to go and check them out. I think their videos are pretty good. I like watching them. They put them out at different times, but you know, it doesn't matter where in the world that we're teaching or what we're teaching, there's always wonderful ways that we can collaborate. So today I'm joining in, and to join in it means using some questions that we all answer the exact same question, and that way we get to watch each other's videos and see what kind of similarities and differences there are and how we, you know, compare, and they might give us tips, we might give out tips. Either way, it benefits all. We know collaboration benefits all. So I'm going to put the questions below as well, and you'll see the last question today, number 7, is tips and strategies for classroom management. So I'm going to kind of focus on the behavior element of it for today's video, just because the other questions kind of go with that. Hopefully if you're still with me at the end of the video, I might have answered any questions that you might have had in the past. I know lots of people have sent me messages about different things on classroom management or tips for behavior, so hopefully I'll help out with some of those, and I definitely recommend going and seeing those other channels. So one of the things that we're meant to do though is display our flag, and I'm still learning how to put pictures and things on here. I've learned how to do the links at the end of the video, but I'm not very good at putting pictures on there, so I was going to have an Australian flag up here, but I went to all the local shops and there's no Australian flags anywhere. Because you know what? It's not Australia Day. And apparently that's the only time of the year we sell Australian flags anywhere. And I went everywhere. Yes, even my beloved Kmart didn't have an Aussie flag. So I went to the Atlas and I looked through the Atlas. This is my kids' Atlas at home. Couldn't find it. But I love this map of Australia. So for those of you that are not in Australia, I'm in Southwest Sydney, which is kind of, you know, down here a bit, kind of. And there was no, would you believe there was no flag in there? There was maps, symbols galore, no flag. So I went digging through because I was sure my kids would have clothes with the flag on it, and I've done a massive donation lately. They must have outgrown them. I did find my favourite flag, and it's not meant to be offensive whatsoever. I love our country. I love our Australian flag. I'm seventh generation Australian. My ancestors were convicts that came over on the First Fleet, and this was the only flag I could find. It's from Mardi Gras. My husband and I went to Mardi Gras, oh my gosh, before we had kids. So it would have been at least 10 or more years ago. And this was the flag that everyone was wearing at the time at Mardi Gras. Oh my gosh. And it was so much fun. And we got the flag and we fly this on our door every year during Mardi Gras because, you know, we have kids now, so we won't be going back there until they're at least 18 and out of the house because, you know, we have no life apparently. Anyway, moving on. I've gone way off topic. That's the only flag I could find in the house. What I will do is show you all a lovely picture of our Australian flag. Ta-da! You know what it looks like. We have an awesome flag. Anyway, moving on. So, part of this collaboration today, question 1. How does your school deal with misbehaviour? This is... I mentioned this to the other YouTubing teachers out there that it would be an interesting one for me to start on because the school that I'm currently at has the least amount of misbehaviour I have ever encountered in my entire teaching career. And I think a lot of that comes down to the school community, the culture of the school, the cultural backgrounds of our students. We have a very, very high percentage of students from a Vietnamese background. And I found from my experience working at this current school and previous schools as well, that the Vietnamese community have a very, very high level of respect for schools. They want to make sure their kids are there. that they're being educated, that they're well behaved, they will follow up if there are any issues. And that's not to say that other cultures don't do that. I've just found that they do it really well, very, very well. So the students are so well behaved. We've got lots of refugees as well, and lots of immigration in the area. We're in the Fairfield region, so I think it's 12,000 new refugees coming into the area? This is I'm thinking of the reports that have been coming out on the media, so I'm not sure if that's accurate. But the families that we come in are very grateful to be where they are. They're grateful to be at school. They're grateful to have a home. So we don't have as many behaviour issues as what we've had before. So the way we deal with behaviour is by using the behaviour management system that we've got. And I'll show you some video I took in my classroom towards the end when I get to number 7 that show you exactly what our rules look like and the steps that we take. But pretty much it's just the verbal warnings, name is written down and they can get a timeout or, like a class detention. There's been no suspensions there since I've started. And I think prior to that, a couple of years before, while the principal has been there, no suspensions then either. So in terms of me giving you some tips with dealing with behaviour though, I did a video before about why I don't say please, I say thanks. And that's an example of how I set up expectations in my class. The expectation is you follow the rules. If you don't follow the rules, there's a consequence. If you follow the rules, there are benefits to that. And I use that language with the kids. I use the words rewards and consequences. I use the words expectation. They know it's an expectation. I expect you to do blah. If you don't follow it, this is what's going to happen. And that's what we try and keep consistent across the board and make sure there's consistency amongst other teachers as well. So when a student knows that when I go into their classroom, the rules don't change. It doesn't matter if there's a casual teacher on my class or me on my class. The rules are still the same because that's just what's expected of them. Okay, number 2, what are consequences for misbehaviour? So like I said, it's pretty much just timeouts, staying back in the classroom to finish work. That's all we really need to have at the moment. We don't have things like cards or anything like that. Some teachers use Class Dojo. I personally don't deduct points off Class Dojo. I prefer to use Class Dojo as a positive system. I'm a Class Dojo ambassador, so I'm a very big advocate for making sure that it bridges the gap between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. So I don't want to use it as a negative system. I just need to tell kids that, if you don't do your work in class time, you're going to do it in playtime. That's it. And if they don't, then they sit outside my office up in the staff room doing their work. And it doesn't take too long before they realise that that's going to be the consequence every time. As soon as I warn them again, that's what's going to happen. That's your choice. I can't respond. I can't make you do anything. I can only respond to what you do. And I tell them that. Okay, question number 3. I'm just checking what it is. Can students be expelled from schools? If so, what steps will take place to prevent that? Well, yes, we're in the public system, New South Wales public system, so of course students can be expelled. However, there is a very transparent and rigorous process that has to have been followed for that to happen. So there's suspension procedures and policies in place, and there's differences between a short suspension and a long suspension. There can be negotiations as to whether or not it happens at school or happens at home. And this comes down to the needs of the student, the behaviour needs of the student. It comes down to why there was a call for a suspension. And there's different levels. There's consistent disobedience and non-compliance, as opposed to a student using a weapon violently against another person. So it comes down to that policy and procedure, and that comes down to senior executive in the school. And my advice to teachers is to just document everything. Document everything. If you're using a school online system like Central or Millennial or something like that, document it. Date it. Make sure it's there. If you're not using anything like that, put it in your diary. Keep a diary for all of those things. Keep a record. I've got some samples at the end here that I'll show you what I have that you could use or make your own template from. Just document everything, because when it comes to anything like suspension or expulsion, if you don't have that evidence to back it up, it's not going to happen. And you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing the student a disservice as well, because the whole point of suspension is not necessarily as a consequence. You're meant to utilize that time that they're away from school to put a behavior management plan in place, to draw up a risk management plan if you need it, and to work out all the nitty gritty of what needs to be put in place to support that student when they come back to school. So steps taken in place to prevent those things. You've got your learning support team. Learning support team is not just there for academic and cognitive need, it's there for behavior need as well. So your counselor can help you with assessments on ODD or things like that, and they can help you with strategies that you need in your classroom to be able to manage that behavior to be preventative. If we can be proactive rather than reactive, then it's much better for the student, it's much better for your classroom, and it just makes a more cohesive learning environment overall. Okay, consequences. Number 4, consequences: detention, in school or out of school suspensions, skipping, specials, or recess. I'm not above telling a child that they're going to miss out on a special occasion if they can't demonstrate appropriate behavior. Like I said, the setting I'm at doesn't happen. Previous settings though, we've done that. We've had rewards day for students that have maintained appropriate behavior throughout the course of the term, and I believe those students should be rewarded, especially when they've got poor examples around them during the day. If they don't give in to that temptation to be silly and do the wrong thing, then, you know, it's good to recognize those kids that do the good thing, because with those kids that do have those behavior needs, we're constantly jumping on the good. Anything that's good, feed it, positivity. And those kids that are always doing the right thing at the right time, I don't know, because I was the nerd at school. I always did the right thing. I never skipped school. You know, I didn't muck up on the teacher much. So, you know, I always felt like that kid was getting 5 awards for doing jack all when I do all of that 100% all the time and barely got rewarded. As a teacher, as a parent, as an adult, I know that, you know, I know the reasons behind that, but I still know what it felt like to be that kid that was always putting in a good effort and not necessarily receiving the same accolades. So yeah, if they need to miss a special activity, then they miss it. Too bad. In school or out of school suspensions, well, as coordinator of the learning support team, I can advocate for both. Like I said, it depends on the needs of the child. It comes down to the school culture, comes down to the parents that you're working with. If you know that being at home is not going to benefit that child at all, if you know it's going to be at their detriment, then you're not going to send them home for 3 days on a suspension. You might have them in a different learning area at school. If there's the space for them to be up at the office near senior executive, that might be beneficial. Okay, we're up to number 5 now. What is the responsibility of the teacher in the classroom community? Okay, well, the responsibility of the teacher is to implement the policy and procedure of the department that they're employed by. I'm employed by the New South Wales Department of Education, so I get paid to implement policy and procedure, and I need to do that under the umbrella of the school that I'm at. So under that is my school plan, is the policy, I should say the procedures that are at my school. You don't technically need policies because we have those in the department. You only need a policy in place for something that the department doesn't necessarily have a policy on. Your policy or procedures, I should say, may differ depending on the systems within your school. So, you know, attendance might be recorded differently depending on the system that you're working with. Your rewards will be different. So we have our rewards, we have our rules. We wrote new rules for our school the end of last year, and they've been put into place this year. And they were created after discussing with the staff, and then the executive put it together, and we decided that we were going to use the Department of Education Student Code of Conduct as our umbrella to guide us. So what I might do now is actually I'll switch to some video of my classroom, and the rules that I display and how I utilize that. So I might switch to that now for you. So these are the school rules that we have here. Be safe, be respectful, be engaged. And then we have a few just points underneath that help demonstrate what those things mean. However, I like the way these are worded because they come underneath, they're underpinned by the Department of Education Student Code of Conduct, and I'll link that for you. And any behaviour really that's being demonstrated that's inappropriate, I can call under any of that language. You know, you're rocking on the chair, you're not being safe. You're not waiting your turn to talk, you're not being respectful. You're wandering around the room and not actually getting to your activity, you're not being engaged. Therefore, you are not following our school rules. If you're following our school rules, hey, dojo points, wonderful rewards. If you are not following our rules, however, this is where this comes into play. And this is my behaviour clip chart. In the past, I've used a traffic light to manage these, but this year we had inside out as a bit of a theme. So I just tied in the theme with what we're using. So the student names are written on these on the back. I flipped them around just because I don't want their names on the video. So everyone starts on green, and green is good. It's your go-to. Those students who are really going above and beyond and doing the right thing, they get to have their name moved up to joy, and on dojo they get a point of joy. That's it, nothing else. They get my verbal praise and a point of joy. If they're doing the wrong thing, they get a verbal warning first, and I say very specifically, this is your verbal warning. And if they continue, then their name goes to this icon, which is sadness, if you've seen the movie. And I say, your name has now moved. You have had your verbal warning. This is now your formal warning. And then I remind them that if they go to the next step, this means a timeout. So they get their verbal warning, they get the formal warning, and then their name goes. So they've got plenty of chances to get their behaviour back into line before they move. And so they know when their name has been moved. I make sure they know it's been moved. In previous classes I've had, sometimes I ask the student to move their name themselves, just as that bit of reinforcement. I haven't needed to do that this year though. So yeah, that's what that looks like. So you can see how I utilize the rules. They're always on display in the classroom. They're at a point that's pretty visual, even though my room, you've seen that we rotate around the room and we don't really have a front or a back. I guess you would technically call that the front because that's where the interactive whiteboard is, and we do use that space, I guess, more often than the other areas in the classroom as a collective, as a whole. And it's easy for any casual teacher to see and use as well. And having the clip chart there in the same spot as the rules makes it easy to refer to and link between. And again, easy for any casual teacher to use if they want to, and they can easily note down if a name has been moved or anything like that during the day. So in terms of my responsibility obviously is to the students, to make sure that I can set them up to be successful. If I make sure that all of my expectations are very, very explicit, that they're consistent, it's the same in every classroom in that school. It doesn't matter which teacher comes in. And so, like I said, I don't have class rules. I don't want them to differ. I don't want to say that those school rules are now suddenly less worthy because I have class rules. They're very explicit in my classroom. And I have had class rules previously. Some classes I've had where the behaviour management really needs to be rigid to the point where you've got to tell kids, put your hand up to talk, just because of behaviour management, then you might need those class rules in there. But like I said, group I've got at the moment, don't need it. It's unwarranted. It's extra work for no reason, and it's confusing when I've got 3 rules that I can talk about with any behaviour. And realistically, I want to make it simple for them. They need to be able to repeat back to me what our school rules are. They should be able to tell me that they're being safe or that they're not being safe. If I can say to them, running along, the brick wall over there, how is that wrong? They should be able to tell me they weren't being safe or they weren't being responsible, making it easy for them to link to and give them some ownership over it as well. They are our school rules. You are part of our school. You own these rules. You belong to them. You need to respect them and you need to demonstrate them. And that's next question. Question number 6 is, what is the responsibility of the student in the classroom community? Well, the responsibility obviously is to be the best learner that they can be. A way to do that is by following our rules, being safe, being responsible, and being engaged. And that's how they can be the best learner they can be. It's my job to set them up to succeed. It's their job to actually open the door and walk through it and do the right thing. And I always tell them, that they are in control of their behavior. I cannot control their mind. I cannot control their arms and their legs or their mouth. They are the ones that are in control of it. I can only respond to it. The only thing I can do is respond. I have to react to what they do. If they do the right thing, I react in a good way. If they do the wrong thing, well, then there's going to be consequences. And you're very well aware of what the consequences are because I've made it explicit. Okay, last one now, tips and strategies for classroom management. So I'm going to flip back to some video that I took in the classroom today just to show you some cheat sheets that I use in the classroom for monitoring behaviour and for just keeping things recorded as well. The one thing that I forgot to film though was just my behavior management chart. So I'll just tell you quickly what that looks like. It's a little printout, and on the front it just has the student name and the school logo. And when you open it up, this was another atlas that I tried to look at. There was a map in here. So let's open up Australia. So on this side, it has a chart of the days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then it's got sessions. It's got 2 for the morning. So session 1, morning 2, because you've got your first hour and then your second hour, and then middle, and then end of the day. So there's 4 slots in there. And across each one has these little boxes, and it has a smiley face, a straight face, and a sad face. And obviously the idea being is that in each one of those sessions, you colour in the face. So when you are going through that session, you need to make sure you're jumping on it. Don't wait till the end of the day. You've got to be able to colour it straight away and reinforce that behaviour. Great work for that hour. Happy face. Yay. Dojo point, reward, whatever it is you're going to do. And then the next hour, jump on it. And we need to not set them up for an unrealistic expectation. It's silly to expect from that student that you're going to get 20 smiley faces straight away when they first start in this. Now, keep in mind, this is for really explicit behavior management. If they get 3 smiley faces in one day, free computer time. Give them the chance to have 1 sad or 1 straight. And then the idea being is that if they can get through the whole day with smiley faces, maybe they get a pick out of the prize box or something. And then on the other side of it is just a comment section where I can feed back to the parents. So if there was a time when there was a straight face or a sad face, I can write down exactly what it was. And the goal is to come off the booklet. You don't want them to be on there for the entire time. So, the more and more smiley faces you get, and then chances are they'll stop remembering that they need to colour in a face or whatever. That's when, you can start weaning away from the book. It's really simple visual aid that they can have. It's got the week's overview on there. And I know sometimes people look at it and go, oh, what if they're still looking at their sad face from Monday? I haven't found that in my experience to be an issue. They're really focused on what they're getting for that day. I'll see if I can get a photo of it. And if I do, I'm going to stick it in here. Okay, I found a file that I can just video. So obviously it wouldn't look like this. When you print it out, it turns into a little booklet on an A4 page that you then fold. And you can see I've got the school logo in the name. This is the section where I can just write notes for the parent. And I'm just going to zoom in on this section here. So you can see it's got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the sad face, the straight face. And this particular student likes Pokemon. So I replaced the smiley face with Pokemon. So morning 1, morning 2, middle and afternoon. And then, 10 o'clock rolls around, they get to colour in the Pokemon. 11 o'clock or whatever rolls around, they've done well, they get to colour in the Pokemon. And then the expectations are written on there. So, receiving a whole day of smiles was extra iPad or computer time. Getting 20 smiles was a special reward from the teacher. 1 sad face was 5 minutes of time out of lunch that day. So just that 1 sad face. 2 sad faces in one day was off the playground. Now that sad face was obviously, a higher level behavior. So, if they weren't doing quite the right thing, they can still get the sad face. Where there was no consequences, the straight face. So the straight face didn't have the consequences to go with it. It's just that reminder that that's not the behavior that will earn you a reward. And then there's more room there for communication. So I find I've used this in various forms, and I've always found it to be very beneficial. And I've only ever really had to use it for 3 to 5 weeks with most students. And then they start to wean off it a little bit. And you can move on to that star chart or the other one. Okay, I'm glad I found the booklet there so that I could show you that video, because I think that's a good tool to use in the classroom. And you just keep it in a plastic sleeve, stuck on the wall or stuck on their desk or whatever works for you in the classroom. And it doesn't need to be anything, big. It's just simple, photocopy, chuck it in. I photocopy 10 at the beginning of the term and you've got plenty there to go. If it gets lost, just bring out another one. If it's Wednesday, start on Wednesday. It's no big deal. If you want to keep records of it, just take a photo of it. That's fine. You don't have to keep the actual thing. The kid can take it home and show their parents. Not a problem. Okay. So I'm going to flip to the video now that shows you the other templates that I use in the classroom.
Okay, I've only got this in black and white. I have this on my OneNote in colour, but this is the class behaviour procedures. So it's the same method across all classrooms, regardless of what your clip chart or behaviour chart looks like. So the negative is that verbal warning. So the second warning, a name recorded, board or book. So theirs is recorded by moving it to the thing, but I have a chart as well. And then they can be moved within the classroom for a timeout, moved to another classroom for timeout, and then we need to liaise with the supervisors. So because I am I am the supervisor, I notify that, but if it's something serious, then I would go to the principal about that. And then we've got our positive rewards, so dojo points, we've got awards, and then our honour award system as well. And these are reflected in our playground behaviours as well. Same thing, verbal warning, second warning and saying to them, this is now your formal warning. They can get moved to timeout, and then they can get sent to other timeouts as well if need be, or off the playground. So it's very similar. Okay, now this is where I record. Now, because I use Dojo for their points of joy, I don't really write their names on here unless we're very, very busy and I need to do it later. And I say, you know what, I'm going to write it down and I'll come back and give you your point later. I stopped using this one only because, you know, they're all doing the right thing. I didn't really need it. So obviously it's the blue and the red that's an issue. And really, this is only for the kids that are repetitively doing it. The kids that you're constantly moving to blue every single day, that are going to red every single day. I put their names on here. So that if there's an issue, I can say to the parent, you know, look how many times in a week I've recorded your child's name for doing the wrong thing consistently. This is inappropriate. I just realized I've got some shadows there. This isn't what shouldn't be this shouldn't be happening. So it's just, and it's evidence for you as well. If you need to go down the track of suspension or anything like that, it's some evidence to back you up. This is an example of a reward chart that I've used in the past. So it's just the day is across there, and just for doing the right thing, and it can be for anything. So this is a child that may not necessarily have explicit behaviour needs, but just to reinforce. And it could be a child that might be falling behind, that needs a bit of encouragement to stay on track, or just needs encouragement to sit down and give it a go. And you just put stars across there, and it's up to you what the reward is at the end of the day. Okay. This is where I record those students who aren't on the blue and the red constantly all the time. So I've got some activities here, so guided reading, writing, maths, and then whatever the other KLE is. And this is if there's consistent problems all day long. You're constantly talking to that student, but you can't spend all day long recording everything. So I just put some basic things here: not following instructions, work avoidance, work refusal, calling out, damaging property, disturbing other students, leaving the classroom, and then putting a comment. And all I did was I put across there. And this is just a sample. I haven't even put a student's name in there. So I've just put a sample with a random comment on there. But this student sometimes would end up with, you know, 4 crosses there for not following instructions, or the work avoidance, 4 crosses in there during guided reading. You know, this is 4 times I had to talk to them. And you can just have this handwritten, or because I've got the OneNote in the classroom, I can type straight onto it. I just have this document open, put it across there. And, you know, if you've filled that in, this is just one day. You might have a week one. You might have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday instead, and just tally it up. Again, good documentation for you to have at a parent meeting. Good to back you up if you need to go down the road of suspension. Okay. This, I'll go to that one next. Sorry. This is the out of classroom log. I really don't need it in here because I don't have kids going in and out all the time, but it's been beneficial before for those kids that are constantly trying to use the toilet or go for a drink, or if you've got kids out at reading all the time and you want to monitor that and see if they're missing out on something, just put the date, the name, the time, and the reason. Very simple. I just keep it on a clipboard, and, you know, sometimes that one sheet would have lasted me a week in a previous class. Okay. This is an individual behaviour plan. This is not something that the student would read. This is something that the teacher would write up first, and then talk to the student about. So we might put on some targets on there, and then they might give us some some input as well as to what they want to achieve. Haven't needed to use that one so far yet this year. This is something I have used this year though, and this is just to help keep that student on task. So up here it would have the student's name and then work chart. And the idea being is that the expectation is that they complete these things. If they complete those 3, then they get the iPad. If they complete these ones fine, then they get a choice of the computer. And then we go out to lunch. And then I'd have another sheet for the next session of the day. So these are high behaviour needs, these ones. And these are where the activities are very repetitive throughout the day. They might have an SLSO with them. And it does tie in with some of these charts that I'm using here, the behaviour charts. the work chart. So they just put the tick when they're done, like that. So this is the sort of more stringent level that you would be using, and then they can have that. But this one's for the entire week there. So when the week is over, when the activity is done, they can have some stickers to put on there. Then they can take that home at the end of the week and you know, see what they've achieved for the week. And it's good for the parents to see it too.
Okay, so different templates obviously for different needs in the classroom. I don't have them all going at one time. It just depends on the need. So those are a few different things that I've used in the past. What I would like to show you though is a chart that I like to use in the classroom that's good for having those conversations for kids that have some difficulty recognizing when they're building up to that inappropriate or negative behavior. So I'll just show you that video now. This is a chart I have in the classroom that I refer to just in case, you know, students aren't quite calming down or being able to modify their behavior. It's stop, think, choose. It's easily Googled. If you could just go to Google Images and type stop, think, choose, light, stoplight or whatever it's called. And, you know, and I utilize this language. Stop, calm down, breathe deeply, consider everyone's feelings. What's the problem? What are your options? What are the consequences of your actions? And you can be specific here to your consequences in the classroom. Remember, if you do this, you will need to go to time out, you know, and then choose. Make your choice. Remind the student of what their choices are. If you choose to do blah, you will need to go time out. However, if you choose to do the other blah, I can give you a dojo point, or you can pick where you want to sit, or you can go onto the iPad or whatever. Talk to someone you trust for support. They might need guidance for this. You know in the classroom who that student would trust, and you might be able to pick a student to go and talk to them. You know what? I can see you're not having a great time at the moment. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go and talk to your buddy, calm down, and then when you come back, this is what I expect of you. Okay, so you can see I've got lots of different things going on there at the moment, and I don't want to overwhelm you with it. There's lots of different things that I could suggest or recommend based on my entire career of teaching, because every school's different. All kids are different. Your classes are different. Expectations will change depending on the grade that you've got, depending on the, you know, levels that you've got in your class, depending on the culture of the school that you're in. So hopefully I've covered a little bit of it for you though. I really want to express to you though that the biggest thing that you can do to make sure that you're setting up your classroom for, you know, positive behavior management is just maintain the focus on the positive. You know, constantly taking points away and giving out consequences we know is not as effective as being proactive and positive. So try and keep that in mind. That does not discount the need to have consequences whatsoever. There is a place for consequences. You just need to make sure that they're effective and they're appropriate. So you need to weigh that up and, you know, use the resources around you, use your supervisors, use your peers, use the learning support team. They are all there to support you and guide you. And there's, you know, teachers that have been in the system a while have come across different strategies, different methods, and they will recognize similar behaviors in those kids. So if you've come across behavior and either you're not sure what to do or what you are currently doing isn't working, seek out assistance. We all know that we've got answers within each other if we just talk to each other. So make the time to have that conversation. Find someone who can give you some assistance. If you can't find it, I'm happy to answer any questions. I always say I answer, you know, every message that I get through. So comment below if you've got it. Shoot me a message. All of the links and everything are below. I'll put the links to all the other teachers that do these videos too. I'm very keen to hear what their answers are to these questions, especially since some of them are secondary teachers. Behavior is definitely different in secondary. I remember that being part of a central school. It's a different world in secondary. Hopefully this has been helpful and not too jumpy all over the place for you. Just make sure you're setting up explicit expectations in your classroom. Be confident, maintain control, and remind your kids that you can only respond to what they do. You can't make those choices for them. Lay out those choices, give them that ownership. It's all on them pretty much. All we can do is try and set them up as best as we can to be successful learners. And we can do that by making our lessons engaging, making sure that our classrooms have high expectations that suit their needs, and that we know our students best and we know how they're going to respond to different things. So hopefully you enjoyed that today, guys. Like I said, different style today, so hopefully you liked it. I'm going to put down my button below, so in case you haven't subscribed, feel free to do that. You just hover over it and it will work, and I'll put another video up the top there, and I'm going to now go and edit all of this together. Thanks, guys. See you in the next video. Bye.